Welcome to the Principled Podcast, brought to you by LRN. The Principled Podcast brings together the collective wisdom on ethics, business and compliance, transformative stories of leadership, and inspiring workplace culture. Listen in to discover valuable strategies from our community of business leaders and workplace changemakers.
How do you plan to use artificial intelligence in your business? Is it a friend, foe, or neither? What ethical considerations are at stake? Artificial intelligence has become the topic du jour, from national news outlets to trade publications. The very term artificial intelligence can elicit feelings of uncertainty and dissonance about how it will be applied in our daily lives. One thing is certain, AI is here to stay. It will transform the way we do business. With such innovative technology comes the responsibility to use it wisely and ethically. Hello, and welcome to another episode of LRN's Principled Podcast. I'm your host, Susan Divers, Director of Thought Leadership and Best Practices at LRN. Today, I'm joined by Jim Byrne, the Vice President for Ethics and Business Conduct at Lockheed Martin. We're going to be talking about AI and how organizations can approach AI in a responsible and ethical manner. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jim on the Principled Podcast last season. He is a veteran Marine and former federal prosecutor with a background that also includes working in Lockheed Martin's legal department for 9 years and recently serving as a Deputy Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. In November 2021, Jim returned to Lockheed Martin and assume the ethics and compliance duties. Jim, thanks for your service and welcome back to the Principled Podcast.
Thank you, Susan, for having me back on your podcast.
It's a pleasure. Jim, we know that Lockheed Martin has a longstanding and demonstrated commitment to the ethical use of technology. How is the company approaching the development and application of AI?
Thanks, Susan. And you are correct. We do have a commitment to the ethical use of technology, and artificial intelligence is no exception. We are continuing to develop trusted artificial intelligence through measured, repeatable, and transparent processes. These are complemented by appropriate levels of human oversight and review to ensure we are aligned with the Department of Defense's principles, which include our use of AI being responsible, equitable, traceable, reliable, and governable.
When we think of these principles, Jim, how do your core values play a role?
The ethical use of technology is embedded in our core values, which are do what's right, respect others, and perform with excellence. We believe honesty and integrity engender trust. Our company abides by United States laws and the laws in other countries where we do business. With artificial intelligence, we have been early adopters of DoD's ethical principles. And that being said, AI does raise brand new ethical ambiguities and risks. The DoD principles I mentioned help us address the new challenges and ensure responsible use of artificial intelligence.
Can you explain a little bit more about the DoD ethical principles?
Sure. So Lockheed Martin was actually the first to adopt the U.S. DoD artificial intelligence ethics principles that were released in February of 2020. And the first DoD AI ethical principle is to be responsible, meaning those who are responsible for the development, deployment, and use of AI must exercise appropriate levels of judgment and care. The second principle involves the use of artificial intelligence being equitable, meaning that we minimize unintended bias in artificial intelligence capabilities. Third is that the use of AI must be traceable, meaning we must have transparent and auditable methodologies, data sources, and designs and procedures and documentation. Next is that artificial intelligence use is reliable. We must be able to ensure AI capabilities are tested for safety, security, and effectiveness. The fifth principle is that we use artificial intelligence. It must be governable. We must have the ability to detect and avoid unintended consequences with an ability to disengage and deactivate if we find any anomalies.
Should companies consider having their own internal policies on artificial intelligence, Jim?
I think absolutely. Not only did Lockheed Martin adopt the United States Department of Defense's AI ethical principles, but we established an internal policy a few months later in September of 2020, aligned with these DoD principles. And we actually named the policy Ethical Development and Use of Artificial Intelligence. Other companies may want to consider attending best practices forums to collaborate and learn more about the ethical application of AI within their industries.
How do you approach governance when it comes to AI?
At Lockheed Martin, we created some strong governance structures, including an artificial intelligence executive steering committee, and importantly, a subcommittee for artificial intelligence ethics. This subcommittee is chartered to adjudicate AI ethics concerns. From time to time, employees may have a question or concern about whether an AI program or a component of the program is compliant with policy or aligned with our values. This subcommittee for AI ethics gives them a path to raise concerns and resolve any issues early on.
You know we have to mention training. How are you communicating the ethical use of AI with your employees?
Excellent question. The Ethics and Business Conduct team has actually partnered with our engineering and technology artificial intelligence team to develop the right language to include in our recently updated Code of Conduct. We also developed an AI consent to use course requiring employees to acknowledge AI policies and guidelines. Early next year, we plan to roll out an AI awareness module for all employees, which will be added to our already existing sensitive information business conduct compliance training course. And then finally, a more granular ethics and AI course will be added to the learning plans in January of 2024 for the specific employees who will be hands-on and most involved with artificial intelligence.
Can you give us a few non-sensitive examples of applying these principles in practice, Jim? What areas of corporate compliance should be particularly focused on them?
So on the Homeland Security front, we're currently in the research and development phase of an AI program that will better detect, predict, and fight wildfires. To help ethically train our models, we're using thousands upon thousands of data points from historical wildfires, satellite data, weather patterns, and more. All this information that goes into the model is tracked to ensure traceability. We're continuing to test and refine our models to ensure reliability and governance. To ensure responsibility, everyone working on this program has been trained on the ethical use of artificial intelligence. And when it's ready for a customer, our team will ensure that the end user understands the model and how to responsibly use it. If at any point an employee has a concern about this program, they would raise it to the AI Ethics Subcommittee for adjudication that I referenced earlier. So that's a high-level example of how we would apply a few of these principles in practice.
That's a very impressive example, Jim, and thanks for sharing that with us. Jim, this has been such an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the Principled Podcast, and I hope to see you again here soon.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
My name is Susan Divers, and I want to thank all of you for listening to the Principled Podcast by LRN.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. The Principled Podcast is brought to you by LRN. At LRN, our mission is to inspire principled performance in global organizations by helping them foster winning, ethical cultures rooted in sustainable values. Please visit us at LRN.com to learn more. And if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And don't forget to leave us a review.